yes, a non-constructive mind can take that approach.
And not to forget, SEBI also did some wonderful stuff on the M&A front. It started scrutinizing all schemes of arrangement for adequate disclosures, convoluted structures and exaggerated valuations. It also approved a new framework for consent mechanism, one that makes insider trading non-consentable. But back to our guests list. Companies bill got passed, options got validated, and much to everyone's surprise, policy became slightly aparalytic. Unlisted companies were allowed to list abroad without a compulsory domestic listing. A new definition of control, one that mirrors control as per the takeover code. Telecom sector saw the FDI limit upped from 74% all the way to 100%. Defense can see further opening up from 26% if an investor brings in state-of-the-art technology. And for a bunch of sectors like petroleum, commodities, stock exchanges, depositories, investors won't have to queue up outside the FIPB as they have been moved to the automatic route. FDI in multi-brand retail saw a revised position by way of a circular and an FAQ that only led to more questions. Nonetheless, movement on policy front featured on the list of corporate lawyers as the third most important development in 2013.
In bureaucratic terms, these are big moments because from here onwards, you can have a march of law and hopefully a government will find conviction and we'll have a stable government which can take it forward. But these are big moves. I understand fully well that a lot of them are commercially unviable and therefore not many things have taken up. But over a period of time, I'm sure that when the door is open, we have a tendency to open it wide and it will move forward.
One of the things that I felt quite concerned about was the approach that was used in the circular on multi-brand retail trading. And for the first time the government kind of introduced this opt-in policy where states could decide whether they wanted to allow multi-brand. Exactly. And I thought that sets a slightly dangerous precedent.
Why
because,
so?
Because FDI has always been a sort of central kind of prerogative. The policy on foreign investment has always been dictated from the center and implemented and administered from the center. And to suddenly give states a role to play in determining policy, I think is something that may have far-reaching implications. We're sort of, I think we're going to see coalition politics for some time now. So my concern is just that even going forward, other sort of politically sensitive areas of foreign investment would be allowed only on a state-to-state basis.
2013 saw another first. Sexual harassment made front-page headlines. A former Supreme Court judge, a high-profile editor, joint secretary of a cricket association, a registrar at a national law school. 2013 put women's issues front and center. Though late by almost 15 years, the Parliament did its bit too. The 1997 Vishakha Guidelines finally got statutory force in the form of anti-sexual harassment law, the fourth most important development of the year gone by.
Parliament has clearly indicated that they're going to take this matter seriously now, and I believe it's a very good piece of legislation. Some may argue that it has gone too far, and I'm already hearing voices to that effect. But I think on several aspects it's good. It covers people at organized as well as unorganized sector. It defines the workplace very broadly. It defines sexual harassment in a very workable kind of a definition. It's broad enough to cover almost all kinds of misconduct in that area.
The tax space kept us busy in 2013, and how? We saw some transfer pricing magic by the department that recharacterized equity as debt. For Shell, the magic came in with a bill of 15,000 crore rupees. Marketing intangibles saw some untangling with the LG ruling. The Revenue Department's attempts to tax internet transactions by alleging permanent establishment was struck down yet again. OECD put out an ambitious 15-point action plan to fight base erosion and profit shifting. Karnataka High Court declared MAT on SEZs as unconstitutional. Overwhelming response to advance pricing agreements and not so safe harbor rules were notified. But it's the lack of clarity that tax experts feel was the most frustrating development of 2013.
there is not one thing that I can think of in tax where anyone can give a straight answer and feel confident that that the position is something which will not be contested or not be disputed, or if there's another advisor who's involved in that conversation, that he doesn't have a view which is different, or that there aren't two courts which don't have different views on the matter. So it's just become very, very difficult to be able to sort of to think, to plan, to advise, to be able to execute or implement any transaction for any aspect which is related to tax, because there is just no certainty. You know, and there are a number of factors which are causing this. So we have retrospective amendments which sort of cause concern about what the interpretation of law today is, and we've had 12 in 2013, we had 28 in the 2012 Finance Act. In the last 4 years, I think we had close to 75 retrospective amendments. Right? We have transfer pricing issues where laws get changed and the scope of transfer pricing gets expanded to then produce situations where companies like Shell and Vodafone have multi-billion-dollar adjustments.
Okay, you pointed out to me that within sort of the tax space, the taxation on buyback is something that you were perturbed about.
Well, so, you know, I think that is an illustration of what I consider, what I regard as you know, laws getting written into the statute when for some stray behavior that might have been observed, which might have been deviant, let's say, or inappropriate. So the question is, you know, we have a buyback provision in the Income Tax Act. There was some logic which must have, you know, based on which the law was written up in the way in which it was. Now, if someone gets an exemption from a buyback because it is characterized as capital gains for tax purposes, and then there happens to be a taxpayer who gets zero tax buyback executed, then do you just change the whole buyback law to say that, okay, if anyone does a buyback, it will be, you know, there will be a tax on that?
You know, you mentioned, Payaswini, about safe harbors being notified and the setting up of the Rangachari committee. There were two mandates which were given to this committee. The first mandate was, there's a huge amount of litigation on IT-enabled services. Can you please look at the litigation and come up with a recommendation on how do you kill that litigation? And the second was, on a transfer pricing, again, huge amount of litigation. Can we come out with safe harbor regulation? And for the first time in the history of this country, the government came out with a circular, CBDT came out with a circular, dealing with each one of those issues to say this is the stand. And on bulk of the issues, it came back to accept the stand of the taxpayer.
You were a member of the Rangachari committee, sir. Were you disappointed with the final outcome?
Thoroughly disappointed, I must say. Thoroughly disappointed because here was a committee which comprised predominantly of government people, people who are in the revenue. Therefore, there was a thought-through process which was not one way or the other. It was a very balanced view. And CBDT, I wish if they had not agreed with the view, one could have said, because a different point of view. But they agreed, and the only thing that they did was in the circular where we said shall, they put up the word may, and that again became a matter of interpretation.